Alameda County Public Health Department presents Regional Distribution Site or RDS Training for Public Health Emergency Response. In case of a terrorist attack or other sudden large-scale emergency, bulk quantities of essential medical supplies could be needed on short notice. In Alameda County, such an emergency could require the treatment of 1.7 million people within 48 hours. In 1999, Congress launched the Strategic National Stockpile Program, or SNS, managed by the Centers for Disease Control. Today, the SNS is managed by the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response, or ASPR, ASPR, with a continuing mission to deliver a first response of medical countermeasure supplies in a push package to the State Receiving, Storage, and Staging, or RSS site within 12 hours. The RSS will immediately apportion medications to the County Regional Distribution Site, or RDS, for local distribution. It is then up to local authorities to quickly dispense the medicines or other survival support countermeasures from the push package. Regional distribution of these essential materials from the RDS warehouse to the points of dispensing, or pods, must not delay it reaching the public because time is critical. Fulfilling your role in getting medical countermeasures distributed to the pods as rapidly as possible requires that you understand the system of delivery and support. Alameda County already has an extensive warehouse industry, so the County Health Department has partnered with expert warehouse managers to develop a regional distribution system that integrates the best warehouse practices used commercially every day. The County Supply Warehouse will act as the Regional Distribution Site, or RDS, in emergencies. Using their proven systems gives Alameda County the ability to more rapidly supply our points of dispensing. They already know how to ship materials efficiently, but they need additional staff in health emergencies to facilitate rapid shipments by prioritizing, tracking, and communicating with the Emergency Operations Command structure. Due to the unpredictable nature of emergencies, including the possibility of terrorism, asset distribution may also require special security measures. The most extreme case, and the standard for which we train, is bioterrorism anthrax attack. In an anthrax attack, the maximum window for emergency treatment of the entire urban population is extremely short. Simply said, the more people we treat in the shortest amount of time, the more lives we potentially save. If your role puts you in the RDS, you'll be part of the first line of defense. You will be treated with emergency medications and other supplies as soon as they arrive. The treatment cycle for anthrax exposure is 60 days. SNS countermeasures arrive in 2 waves. The first 48 hours is for rapid response delivery to mitigate the immediate threat, followed by larger long-term deliveries to support ongoing emergency treatment for the rest of the 60 days. Treatment supplies are then distributed to the public in 3 phases. Phase 1, within the first 48 hours, provides a 10-day supply of doxycycline and ciprofloxacin to 100% of the population. Immediately following, ASPR will begin Phase 2 delivery of the 50-day supplies to be distributed to 100% of the population before the initial 10 days is up. This second phase may include additional resources like amoxicillin, anthrax vaccine, and hospital support supplies like ventilators. Phase 3 covers the remaining 50 days during which all medical countermeasures will be maintained and supported as needed. During phases 2 and 3, an anthrax vaccine may be offered. Be aware that the anthrax vaccine requires 2 to 3 doses, along with special cold storage procedures. Points of dispensing include city and county operated public pod locations, along with closed pods operated by private organizations, large businesses, and healthcare facilities. Note that closed pods are responsible for arranging their own pickup and transport of medical countermeasures. The first rapid response deliveries of medical countermeasures will consist of whole pallets containing individual unit-of-use bottles, providing the initial 10-day supply of tablets of the oral antimicrobial drugs ciprofloxacin and doxycycline, Cipro and Doxy for short. These drugs must be taken as soon as possible after exposure and no later than 48 hours after potential exposure. Rapid distribution of these medical countermeasures is the primary life-saving activity of Phase 1 of the emergency response. The county RDS warehouse will receive all of the SNS push-pack pallets from the state RSS. The strategy is to leave pallets together because they come bundled as the same lot numbers. So as long as we know where someone received their medication, we will know the lot number they received. For this reason, during the first hours, the RDS will only be cross-docking or transloading to facilitate the distribution process. These rapid methods allow the RDS to streamline distribution and keep feeding the supply chain while time is most critical. Immediately following the rapid delivery of Phase 1 supplies, ASPR will begin delivering the 50-day supply. This second phase of countermeasures includes the alternative anthrax medication amoxicillin, along with pediatric antimicrobial oral suspensions, adult multi-drug courses, IV antimicrobial drugs, antitoxins, and ventilators. There is also now a vaccine for anthrax, and if available, ASPR recommends that affected populations be vaccinated in addition to the 60-day oral Doxy and Cipro regimens. Because this second wave of SNS resources is more diverse, there will be some prioritization occurring. Single lot number pallets will still be cross-docked or transloaded, but other inventory items may be consolidated into these shipments. Depending on the way the emergency unfolds, once the 10-day supply is in the hands of the public within the first 48 hours, distribution focus may shift to hospitals where symptomatic patients may soon be arriving for treatment. Medical equipment, such as ventilators, may become prioritized assets for saving lives during this phase of the response. The key for the RDS will be to stay ahead of the demand and ensure that every resource is in place before it is needed. If you are assigned to work at the regional distribution site warehouse, or you are part of the transport assignments, you will be working as part of a team. The warehouse staff will run standard warehouse functions, but you will be handling the rest of the emergency distribution functions. Be aware that RDS roles may require some manual labor repackaging supplies. If you are assigned to an RDS location, wear comfortable attire, closed-toed shoes, and be prepared to tie your hair back if it is long. Always bring your driver's license and work IDs, along with any personal medications you may require over the course of the emergency. And you might also bring personal basics to have at hand, such as deodorant or aspirin. Always make sure to take food and water breaks when scheduled. It is estimated that notification for RDS activation will occur 4 to 5 hours after an identified emergency. Prior to the arrival of SNS shipments, the RDS team will be notified to arrive and set up the regional distribution site in coordination with warehouse staff. The county RDS team will be responsible for assisting in the warehouse and for coordinating and communicating with Incident Command. Within 12 hours, and likely much sooner, SNS assets will arrive at the RDS facility. The RDS team will accept the assets according to standard chain of custody procedures relating to controlled substances. If delivery includes refrigerated assets like vaccines, then cold chain rules will also have to be observed and documented. Cold chain refers to maintenance of an uninterrupted series of temperature-controlled refrigerated storage and distribution activities, and the equipment used to ensure that medicines are kept at specified temperatures. In general, receiving involves offloading assets from the delivery vehicles, signing off and keeping copies of all pertinent documents from the delivery personnel, and then organizing the assets for storage or distribution. As noted earlier, warehouses typically have systems in place to handle all of these procedures as routine. Storing involves placing assets in secure, environmentally controlled areas until it is time to pack and ship them. If the assets are vaccines, they will be kept in refrigerated containers. Staging involves organizing assets for delivery to points of dispensing. Initially, medical countermeasures will be moved through the RDS as quickly as possible. They won't be stored, and staging will only involve straight cross-docking or minimal transloading. However, after the rapid response is completed within the first 48 hours, more diverse supplies will begin to arrive. Some pallets will need to be opened and repacked for distribution. Following routine warehouse procedure, pick lists generated by logistics and planning will be used by RDS staff to sort assets and assemble them into new pallets organized by delivery locations. The repackaged pallets will need to be verified and documented. This will involve counting each product per pallet, confirming that it matches the pick list and lot numbers, and then confirming the destination of each pallet and attaching the appropriate shipping documents. The warehouse staff will wrap the pallet and load it for transportation. If cold chain transportation is required, refrigerated trucks or chiller units will be used for transport. The chiller units will be delivered and remain at the pod site. The RDS operates under the same incident command system in place at other levels of the emergency response. Open and closed pods are coordinated through the Healthcare Service Agency DOC and the medical branch of the EOC or Emergency Operations Center. You should be familiar with the ICS system from training and drills. Within the incident command system, the RDS primarily serves a logistics function, behind the scenes coordinating supplies and tracking information. The RDS staff is made up of 6 lead ICS roles: RDS Group Manager, Safety Officer, Material Unit Leader, Transportation Unit Leader, Facilities Unit Leader, and Security Unit Leader. The RDS Group Manager is responsible for overall operations, including the handling of all controlled substances, on-site decision-making, and communication up the chain of command with the DOC and EOC respectively. They also serve as the chief contact with warehouse administration and staff. The RDS Group Manager is also the one responsible for activation and deactivation of the RDS warehouse. Reporting directly to the RDS Group Manager are the Safety Officer and the Material, Transportation, Facilities, and Security Unit Leaders. The Safety Officer is responsible for ensuring a non-hazardous working environment and an emergency evacuation plan. The Safety Officer collaborates with the RDS Group Manager and unit leaders to resolve safety issues and implement safety measures as necessary. The Material Unit Leader oversees the primary operation of the RDS supply process, beginning with setup, then receiving and staging, and then shipping out to final destinations. Reporting to the Material Unit Leader are the Receiving Unit, Inventory Control Unit, Staging Unit, and Shipping and Loading Unit. The Inventory Control Unit leader assigns staff to the roles that support inventory processing. The number of inventory processing staff will depend on the size of the event, which phase, and the expected workload. Remember that warehouse staff are already experts in receiving and shipping. They will handle all of the routine loading and unloading. If available, electronic spreadsheets will serve as the primary computer-based inventory management system. If power and computers are unavailable, all records will have to be kept using paper forms. S&S shipments will be accompanied by 3 forms showing chain of custody. 1. S&S Medical Supplies Transfer Form, 2. Bill of Lading, and 3. Pick List. The RDS Group Manager or designee will sign the forms. 2 copies will be made and the original returned to the S&S delivery driver. Receiving and inventory control units each get 1 copy for RDS warehouse records. Before anything else, the shipment must be reconciled with the bill of lading to confirm that amount and lot numbers match. Once receiving is complete, the next step is staging, so that when trucks arrive to pick up the supplies, they are palleted and identified by location. Depending on the emergency, the Department Operations Center will have a prepared list of delivery locations. These will include its own open pod sites and healthcare facilities. However, closed pod partners will have to come to the RDS to pick up their medicine. For Phase 1, full pallets should be clearly labeled with lot numbers and locations for rapid cross-docking. Beginning in Phase 2, the inventory processing team will need to break down some pallets and reorganize new pick lists for different locations. Hospital pick list pallets will include amoxicillin, pediatric oral suspensions, IV antimicrobial drugs, antitoxins, and ventilators. Vaccines will require careful cold chain management, with cold storage units at the warehouse and at the pod sites, with refrigerated shipping in between. Once a pick list is filled and confirmed, the assets can be cleared for delivery, loaded onto vehicles, and distributed to save lives. While the material unit maintains and organizes the medical countermeasures, the transportation unit is responsible for transporting and distributing them. For county delivery responsibilities, the transportation unit will supply trucks and drivers who will deliver the medical countermeasures as needed. Closed pods will be required to pick up medical countermeasures. The transportation unit should coordinate with them to ensure that they have directions and appropriate vehicles, especially if cold chain supplies will be distributed in refrigeration containers. The transportation unit should coordinate communications through the facilities unit. The facilities unit is responsible for providing direct and uninterrupted communication between the RDS warehouse and the DOC, EOC, and transportation vehicles. It may also include communication with pods and healthcare facilities. They will ensure that the DOC has access to all warehouse inventories involved in the operation in order to produce reports on resource availability and make emergency redistribution decisions. The security unit leader will be a uniformed law enforcement specialist who is responsible for the physical security of the RDS warehouse, supplies, and staff. Together, the units of the Regional Distribution Site, RDS, ensure that all medical supplies are received and distributed to the points of dispensing quickly and efficiently so that inventories are secure and remain full. As staff at the RDS, your role is critical to the mission, with a direct impact on both time to treatment and the number of people who can be served. Hopefully, this training has given you a better understanding of the role of the Regional Distribution Site. Whether you are working in the RDS warehouse or coordinating with them from a pod or a DOC or EOC, remember that communication and teamwork are your greatest tools. Advanced training for station leaders, command staff, and individual ICS sections is available in other modules. Your participation and continued training for public health disasters helps ensure that we're as ready as we can be when our citizens and our communities need us. This pod video series was brought to you by the Alameda County Public Health Department, Office of Public Health Emergency Preparedness, in collaboration with Applied Creative Training.